Moving on to agenda item number 2, declaration of interest and request for dispensation. This is to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest. Oh, is it not on? Can you hear it? Yes. My voice usually travels. Thank you. Apologies for that, members. Do I need to repeat agenda item number 2? Right, any declaration of interest, councillors, do skip. Item 10. Any other?
11B.
Councillor Amanda Smith.
I would say 10 and possibly, I think 11 as well, please.
Thank you. All finished? Moving on to agenda item number 3, external reports. Receive reports on behalf of external bodies. Moving on to 3A, Paddy Chandler, Communities Locality Leader for North Yorkshire Council. If you'd like to join us, have it at the table and use the mic at the bottom of that. Thank you.
We're handing around a copy of the presentation as well.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if the PowerPoint, it won't be that high PowerPoint because we don't have a PowerPoint, but I've got some paper here and the slides to be shared previously, so they'll circulate hopefully afterwards, if that's alright. Can you hear me alright with the mic there, or do I need to hold it up?
And everyone
Try the mic really as well. Just try the mic, see if it's right.
Actually,
Just do something on top.
Thanks.
Just when it's green, it's on.
Okay. Yeah, how's that? Is that necessary? Okay. So hello everyone. So Paddy Chandler, locality lead in the east of the community team, North Yorkshire Council. Part of the locality service, which is part of the local engagement directorate in central services. I cover the area Whitby over to Thurst in the community team, which I'll explain what the community team is. So that's Whitby, through more south and so on. We're here very much to talk about Whitby, so that's good. My presentation is about what we do in the team. It's to share information about what our function is and how that can support the town and around. For the first half, the second half is about town investment plan work, which we're supporting our regeneration colleagues. Hopefully you've seen some of that already. Go out or be involved today, and that's what we have. So, in terms of the locality's service priorities, in the locality service, there's one larger team, which is the community team that I'm in, and there's 2 other teams. So in the community team, the key things that we're involved in providing are supporting the voluntary sector, looking at the deal for voluntary and community sector, and the review of the funding arrangements. So obviously, through the merging of the 8 local authorities, we have a number of different approaches to both the supporting of community sector and funding of the community sector as well. We're very much in charge with bringing those ideas together, as well as facilitating ongoing support, which I'll talk about in what we do in the community sector. We're also about supporting and embedding locality working and delivering council savings on programmes. So very much our function can be a support between the community sector and different parts of the council. Not always about health and wellbeing, so your traditional children's services and health and adult services. Sometimes it goes into the environment, and highways and other parts of the council. Regeneration, as I've just mentioned, with town investment plan work. Couple of important initiatives that we're working on: community partnerships implementation. I'll talk about that as part of the presentation. And we work on inclusion, in particular around digital inclusion. So as well as my East lead role, I also have a across North Yorkshire role as the digital inclusion lead, working really closely with the combined authority on that. And within the team we work on financial inclusion too. So things like household support fund that you may know about, both grants into the community to support people, support organisations like food banks and fridges and so on to help people have access to food. Also, a bigger part of that household support fund, the voucher scheme for people that fit certain criteria, bringing in extra resources. Outside of the community in that locality service, just for reference, we've got the parish liaison team, hopefully they're known to the council, that was set up post-merger, led by Mark Codman. They've recently done a round of a tour of North Yorkshire, so hopefully there's been some engagement for Whitby Town Council with that team. They're reviewing the parish charter and parish liaison arrangements, again bringing together the different functions and the good practice that was part of the districts and borough and county councils before, bringing that together for across North Yorkshire. And the other team is about supporting it's the migrant programme team, so supporting asylum seekers and refugees, mainly around what we're statutory obliged to support and funding to do, and some extra work, like we've just got some funding in combination with the National Lottery to support migrant populations in certain parts of North Yorkshire. On the slides there's an organogram of the team there, because I know it's always hard to find the person in past organisations, so hopefully that'll be helpful. You can always get in touch with me as well about that if you're struggling to find the right person in our council. So in terms of our community team, two key things that we're looking at there: prevention and community resilience. So that's a very core part of what we do, helping prevent people's need to access statutory services. That could be about children's services, could be about older people, and adult services, helping people live longer, live healthier and happier lives in their community. You may know in coastal areas people tend to have we have an older population, lots of people retiring to the coastal areas, but equally we have a lower age that people die. So there's a lot of work to do in terms of supporting people to live healthier, longer lives. And we're also very much have the remit of supporting communities to be more resilient in terms of local challenges. So, for example, we're involved in the response to the Morland fire here, so we'll all be aware of that and the impact that's had on the communities and the community response to that as well, which has been inspiring. Our community responses quite often are. And the other part of what we do is social regeneration. So, linked with all those things, it's about tackling health inequalities. It's about supporting communities and regeneration for the good of those local communities. There's a slide here that talks about the community sector support platform. So we're here to support community organisations across the board, really, to build a more resilient community sector for across North Yorkshire and obviously in Whitby. We do that partly through the commissioning of Community First Yorkshire as a support organisation for the voluntary sector, so you may not know that they're available to support people with all sorts of things like governance advice, policy advice, funding advice and so on. So if you're coming across developing groups and charities and so on, they're there to support them, and that comes under our remit. So we provide support, provide networking for those organisations, capacity building. There might be growth for charities in the community sector where they need some support. There might be challenge, financial challenge, governance challenge.
Sorry. 3 minutes usually.
Sorry?
3 minutes rule usually.
Is it 3 minutes?
No, presentation if you're not a member of the public.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure how long, so.
I didn't read
No,
through
please
it. I'm sorry.
continue.
Okay. I'll move on to community partnerships. It's interesting, this subject came up in the conversations this morning at the Town Investment Plan, where I think one of the reasons that our team are involved in the Town Investment Plan work is you can see how there might be some opportunities to build on the work of the Town Investment Plan for opportunities later on. What North Yorkshire said ahead of the merged councils was that they would roll out community partnerships in most of the towns and all of the towns across North Yorkshire, and they would provide better voice for local towns and areas. They would provide better representation and bring investment into those areas. There were 5 pilot areas that were tested. The nearest one to here was Forest and Dale, which was actually a rural one covering Thornley Dale, Lockton, Sneinton, that bit of the A170 and Dolby Forest. And that and the others have had some real good successes in learning, and so it's agreed by exec that would be rolled out where there's elected member support. That could and should be rolled out in other areas across North Yorkshire. So we're not rushing in to do that. We're not coming in and saying this is how things should be done, but we're really interested in having that conversation about how there might be an opportunity to have a collaborative group with representation from the business sector, community sector, police, health, town council, obviously, the council, the North Yorkshire Council, and bring together a really strong voice for the Whitby area. So I'm interested as to where that might go in the future. At the moment, the focus is very much on the town investment plan work that goes. Another aspect of work that we do as a piece of work within the team is our community anchor programme. That was launched about 2.5 years ago and was about developing place-based organisations that would be able to help the new large council have good links and engagement with the local community. Very much a two-way process. Where there can be links, information and support for the council. Equally, we are able to support those local organisations to develop and to become a real strong asset for the local community. So that's something that we're just coming towards the end of the first 3 years of grant funding for that now, and looking at what we're going to do in terms of going forward. It's always a long-term programme. Very much the function of those community anchors is about building local alliances, building local partnerships, improving physical and mental well-being, and tackling health inequalities, and regenerating communities, building community resilience. You can see these threads that go through our team's work, and improving people's financial resilience. So examples in Whitby, I wrote on the slide. I won't list them all off, but so in terms of we provide organisational development support, so we work closely with organisations like Whitby DAG, WISH, Whitby Caring Together, and then their Rider Carer Support, so taking over that work when that ceased trading. Got some interesting work at the moment developing what a good collaborative approach to volunteering in Whitby might look like, and what support that we could put forward for governance of charities and community groups. I think there's a real opportunity to improve and support the skills of people charged with being responsible for charities and community groups in the Whitby area. In terms of digital inclusion funding, I said I cover that for North Yorkshire. Lots of that has gone to Whitby-based organisations, Happy Days, WISH, Home Library Service, Living Well, Revival North Yorkshire, Carers Plus, Whitby Town Shed, have all benefited and are able to add to that support for people who need digital inclusion advice. Talked about the Household Support Fund. In terms of community anchors, I mentioned that in terms of one of our programmes, we've got Flash Company Arts in Whitby, and we've got Revival North Yorkshire in the S Valley, who are currently provided and funded to provide that function. Interestingly, it's worth mentioning around community anchors that it's been a learning process for us all. They're very different. If you were to look at, I know Pickering's outside of this area, but if you were to look at the community anchor that we've got in Pickering, which is very much about regeneration, compare it to Revival North Yorkshire, that have got a foundation of supporting older people, really, as well as some other functions, and then Flash Company Arts, providing young people's things, and started to do a little bit of regeneration work recently. They're all very different, but they are providing a developing service. We're not limited to those, though. I do want to make that really clear. We've got an Inspire grant. We've always had an Inspire grant in the team that I've worked in. That's £1,000, especially for starting up new groups and activities. I plug it everywhere I go because I think it's fantastic. So if you're coming across people who really want to start something or try something new or do a bit of community engagement, send them my way and we can help them. You can find it if you Google Inspire North Yorkshire Council, but I'm really happy to talk to them about that. We manage lots of different grants for the NHS, for Combined Authority, for North Yorkshire Council, obviously, but we've always got that £1,000 grant to help organisations start up. Town investment plan work I'll come to. We do a local informal newsletter. If anybody wants that, send it to them, email me and I'll send that out. So that was a whistle-stop tour of the locality community team. Town investment plans, well, some of you have had this already today, but you may or may not know that the Combined Authority have funded North Yorkshire Council and City of York to put a plan in place for all the towns in North Yorkshire. So for that, we're looking at about 32 towns that will have a town plan put in place. A lot of those towns said, the first thing they say is, we've already got a plan, or we've got a vision, or we've got this thing. Part of this is very much bringing that together. So it isn't about starting something completely new, it's about understanding what's already out there, but also providing a bit more of a uniformed approach to, I suspect, the mayor who's funded it, who's putting quite a lot of investment across North Yorkshire and York at the moment, and probably feels that it would be really useful to have a more collaborative understanding of what those town needs are. So there's been investment in North Yorkshire Council to provide those plans, and we're very much in the mix at the moment with developing those. Just a bit of context, so it fits with our economic strategy around developing investment plans for county towns and their hinterlands, and from the Combined Authority, Great Places for All. So there are I won't go into too much detail, there are lots of four settlement groupings, urban centres, principal centres, key service centres and local service centres. And that where you are on that will be dependent on the level of time and resources that's put into your plan. Whitby on the second tier of that, so that's principal service centres, which is great, because we're up and running and we've got plenty of time to do that really well. I must say that the session this morning and this afternoon was really, really useful and got really good representation, I felt, from various different bodies, businesses in Whitby, Town Council, the Community Network, all sorts of, I think that's a really good start. Skip through a little bit of that. This part of the town investment plan work very much about the engagement with stakeholders. The idea there is that afterwards we then go, we reconvene, we look at all the different plans that people have put forward, the different ideas, and then a more defined vision is put together, and then we come back and consult and engage with Whitby and stakeholders in Whitby around that plan to make sure that fits what was said in these meetings. There's a survey out, it's already had 50 responses, which I think is great. Frustratingly, I didn't see any comments till Saturday. So please share that survey as much as possible. Really important to get the voice across of people that live, work, visit here. I'll also add about the town investment plans, there isn't strict boundaries, so they're not following the town council boundaries. It's just not a fixed boundary. It's about Whitby, it's about the town centre, it's about wider than the town centre too. So really flexible in terms of engaging with that, and please do share. I've got some of these, I'll leave them on this table if that's alright with the people that follow me. Vision for Whitby, there's a QR code on there that's got the survey on it. There's also tomorrow, Thursday morning, there's some stakeholders have been invited to come to a session in the morning at Green Lane Centre, and in the afternoon at 1:30 at Green Lane Centre till 3:30. Anyone can come along and drop in and talk to us about it. So it would be really encouraging to see you or any of your colleagues or friends and family at that point. In terms of the running order and time frame, plan initiation, background review and stakeholder engagement. That's where we are at the moment. What comes next? Vision development, project identification and prioritisation, drafting the investment plan, consultation and refinement, and then finalisation and endorsement. And then hopefully we'll have something that everybody agrees is a really good strategy and plan for investment into Whitby in the future. And then that in itself can attract further investment going forward. So that's a whistle-stop tour of that too. If anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Members, any questions? No? We've got off lightly there, Paddy.
It feels like it, yeah.
But thank you very much. granted a very large portfolio of works, quite frankly. So we look forward to working closely with you in the future. Thank you very much for attending this evening. Much appreciated.
Councillors, just to say that the print's not very big, so if I circulate around the full size version tomorrow, I just wanted you to have something in front of you tonight.
Thank you. If Matt Parsons, if you'd like to join us, Matt at the table, or Andrew, very quick,
Good evening. Can you hear me? Right. Good evening, everyone. So the main thing that I wanted to focus on was our proposed amendments that we want to make to our planning commission. So am I right in thinking that you've all received an email outlining it very broadly and then pointing you to our pre-application consultation website? Yeah. Okay. So I'll just talk about it very briefly. And it was nice to see some of you last night at our Whitby consultation event. And there is another one tomorrow from 4 till 7 at Horstep. And the final one is next Friday. I know Friday is a terrible time to have it, but it's the only time that St Louis Hall is available within this window at the time. So, just to put it into context, so as I've talked about previously when I've come, we've undertaken a really detailed technical review of the Woodsmith project over the last couple of years, and that's resulted in us wanting to make some amendments to the project that are absolutely necessary for its safe and efficient operation. So it's 10 years ago since we granted planning permission, and the design that was considered as part of that application was probably 2 years previous to that. So it's very usual in a big project such as this, as it becomes more defined, that there are amendments. So essentially we are seeking amendments to our existing planning permission to build something and operate something slightly different. It is slightly different than we've currently got permission for. We're going to submit our application to the National Park and recommend Cleveland Borough Council. So it's a section 73, so it's an amendment to the existing permission rather than a new application. So the main amendment is to our ventilation requirements at the mine site. So in order for there to be a safe working environment underground at like high levels of production, we need to increase the airflow and the cooling load underground. So our existing consent is for I'm not going to get too technical about it, is for a relatively small ventilation shaft of 140 metres that then connects to the service shaft that acts as the intake, and then the production shaft is the exhaust, the ventilation system. As I said, that isn't going to be sufficient at full production for there to be a safe underground work environment. So what we need to do is we need to sink a ventilation shaft down to the full depth of the production level, so down to 1,600 metres. So essentially the cool air will go down both the service shaft and the production shaft and this new ventilation shaft with a fan house at the top, will act as the exhaust. Now, what that means in terms of amendments are two main things. So the first is there's some more surface development at the mine site, and that's largely driven by ventilation requirements. So there's a building that will go over the vent shaft and a fan house, and then heat exchange unit and some air coolers that were associated with that. But the principle of screening all the development of the site remains. So there's going to be more permanent development at the site, but it's development you're not going to see from outside, from my site, so it'll still be screened with funding. So on the website, and which is woodsmithconsultation.com, and at the events, there's sort of images of what it's going to look like when we're operational. Also, what it does mean is that when we're sinking that ventilation shaft, so you know there's the temporary winding tower up at the moment, the white thing that you can see from from around the place. We are going to need one of those, so there will be a period of time where there's two of those, the one that's currently up there and the one go over the ventilation shaft that's being sunk. And yeah, so that's the main changes in terms of surface development. I would have thought you're sort of less interested in the intermediate shafts at Lady Cross and Lockwood Beck, but they're very similar to what we've currently got consent for. And the other thing is that as we've better understood our logistics requirements, we've really looked into this in great detail. So we're going to need 40 HGV deliveries a day at full production to operate the mine. So that's to take all the consumables, the spare parts, tanks to take wastewater rate, etc., etc. To put that into context, that's consistent with what we've been running in construction today. So, and I think that we've been able to manage that effectively over the last, 8 years. So those, there's a little bit more to it than that, but those are the main changes. So the purpose, so we're having a pre-application consultation to understand and to get feedback from the community stakeholders before we put the application in, which we can do in the first part next year. And of course, once we've submitted the application, the National Park will come for its own consultation. So, people got any questions?
Any questions, members? Councillor Brown?
Can I just say a big thank you to both Paddy and Matt. I've been to both consultations. I've learnt a lot. And I felt that our opinions were being listened to, and I would encourage anybody to go to both of them.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, members? Could I just ask Matt, regarding the 40 HGVs per day, what would be the route or any impact throughout the town? Because I have to say, in the past, I did receive quite a lot of complaints from some residents that there was consistently HGVs running past where they live. So what would that impact be? The route would be through Whitby. So it'd be A171, Mayfield Road, Junction, over the New Bridge, Holwell Road, and to site. So it'd be the route that we, the approved route that we use at the moment. Could I just ask then, the usual things would be in place, that if there was any mess on the roads and things, you would have cleaning equipment?
Absolutely.
All of the usual. These are questions that people will continue to ask them, just to make sure the service works.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? No? Well, thank you again for your report, Mark. Thanks for turning up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll stand rather than sit, if you don't mind. We usually do this as a double-headed exercise with Councillor Trumpler, and if Councillor Trumpler is happy for me to make a start, then maybe he can continue in a while.
Yeah, Councillor Trumpler will join.
Okay.
At this moment, he now becomes, for anyone who's confused, Phil will now take up the role of the North Yorkshire Council to give the report and then return to us as the assistant planner. Thank you.
it's going to be a bit difficult writing minutes on your own speech there, I think. Okay, quite a few things, because it was first week of September we last had a report from the North Yorkshire councillors, and quite a few things have happened since then. I was trying to start off with something positive, and I was at the North Yorkshire Council executive meeting this morning, where the decision was made to make significant investment in leisure facilities across North Yorkshire. You'll be aware that Whitby Leisure Centre is being brought in-house, and I'm pleased to say that it has been identified as one of the half dozen or so facilities that are going to have quite a bit of investment put into it, and I think that's good because it's recognised in the report that went to the executive this morning that Whitby Leisure Centre is a little tired and needs a bit of work to make it a bit more attractive. And the figure is a very big number, which is 9.7 million being spent on Whitby Leisure Centre. So that's, I think, a really good bit of news. People in the room I can see nodding probably know more of the technical stuff than I do, but there's refurbishment of the pool hall, installation of a pool pod, which I'm not entirely sure what that is, installation of sensory lighting in the teaching pool, full refurbishment and reconfiguration of the wet change. I won't go right the way through the list, but there's a lot of work there that is going to go on to make the leisure centre attractive. And that's because it has been designated as an active wellbeing hub, shortened down to AWB. So I think we're very, very lucky, and I made a brief contribution to the executive meeting this morning, welcoming the decision to invest in Whitby, and picking up a point made by one of the executive members, which was that we want all our kids to be able to swim. And I fully endorse that and said, here, living on the coast, we want that especially so. So that's good news. Another meeting that we've had in the last month was on the 19th of September, and that, so it is a little while ago, but it was the Scarborough and Whitby Area Committee, and some people in this room were present. And it's heard from Alison Hume, gave a report about what she's been doing for the area, from RMP, and I was able to ask the question that I asked, well, I've been asking ever since Robert Goodwill was RMP, frankly, which is when is the government going to do something about changing the use classes for changing dwellings into short-term lets. I wasn't wonderfully impressed with the answer, but I think she is still working on it and trying to lobby Treasury. But Rachel Reed has probably got a few other things on her plate at the moment besides holiday lets in Whitby, but nonetheless, she's keeping at it. And then we had an interesting discussion about the cliff lift, which did get quite a bit of publicity, where North Yorkshire Council officers were proposing that the cliff lift in effect be abolished, various options on that, taking the top bit off, sealing it off, or filling the shaft with concrete. Weren't very popular with Whitby councillors in the room, not very popular I think with Whitby residents out there. So Phil put in a petition which was very well supported, and tell you about that. And I think we've got a result which means that at least the decision is deferred until 17th of March. It's going to be taken in October, but it's no longer going to be taken in October. I'll leave that to Phil to say more about. The other issue was as a result of a public question, which has been asked by others as well previously, which is why, since Scarborough and Whitby Area Committee decided in 2022 to alternate its meetings between Scarborough and Whitby, suddenly we seem to be back at just Scarborough meetings. So it means Whitby residents, Whitby Town Council members have to make the trek into Scarborough in order to make their voice heard. The outcome wasn't entirely satisfactory, I don't think, because the officers are still maintaining that there's no venue where they can televise the event, which apparently is the requirement of all area committees now. But there was one concession, which was that the next the meeting in March would be in Whitby. I think it will be at the Pavilion, and that will be on the 2nd of March. So I do hope that members of the Town Council will turn up and make their voices heard, because I seem to remember when I was berating members of the Town Council on an earlier occasion, there was one or two who said, it's just a waste of time going, we can't make any impact on what decisions North Yorkshire Council take. Well, you won't do if you don't attend, so I would suggest that you do make an effort to get to that one at least. But after that, there's uncertainty as to whether we'll return to the alternating between Scarborough and Whitby or not. But I'm hopeful that we will get back to that, because the councillors are definitely in favour of it. I sit on the audit committee for North Yorkshire Council, and we had a meeting on the 29th of September, and there were a couple of issues that affect us locally, a lot of issues that affect us locally, but in particular there was discussion about the report, the district auditor's report on the Alpamare fiasco, where Scarborough Borough Council lent 9 million to an entrepreneur who set up the Alpamare Centre as we know it, and then unfortunately went bust, and there was nothing that compelled him to pay back the 9 million. He'd legitimately spent a couple of million, so the outstanding balance is about 7 million, but nonetheless, that's not very good. And I had been pestering the auditors to publish the report, and the report is now in the public domain, and it was given to the press, and there were some stories carried about it. Fairly unsatisfactory, I think, the outcome, insofar as there's no legal cases coming out of that. There's no real prospect of getting the 7 million back, and it's being put down to a lessons learned, which I'm not entirely happy with. And so I asked it to be brought back to the North Yorkshire Council for examination, and then suggestions then put forward to the executive as how to deal with this mess, which is still with us. I think it's very hard to explain to residents that all their hard-earned contributions to the council tax have just been squandered by somebody or a council which wasn't at that time keeping an eye on the ball. The other issue that is particularly relevant is the harbour lands issue, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, went to the High Court as a result of a case, as a result of a complaint that was brought by individuals involved with Fight for Whitby. And the outcome of that was, as you're probably also aware, that the decision by the judge, after a year of deliberation, was that the complainants were absolutely correct in every respect, and that North Yorkshire Council would have to, in future, make sure that all the revenues from harbour lands, that includes things like car parking along the harbour and so on, that would all have to be spent from the harbour account. The question was, what about the historical amount that had been accumulated since this had first been brought up, and that was 5-6 years ago. And it works out about £1 million a year, so there's £6 million that has to be moved from the general fund into Whitby Harbour account. But there has been discussion on the audit committee as a result of further complaints that have come through, which the external auditor is now considering. It's now in the hands of the senior financial staff at North Yorkshire Council and the external auditors for this Mazars to work out whether in fact any of the further complaints are ones that we must honour. Another quick positive, Paddy Chandler talked about the community anchors, and their work, and I have to say that it has been announced in the last couple of weeks that the bid that was put in to make Flowergate and the surrounding area into an artisan quarter, which was put in by Flash Company Arts, has been successful. So Whitby has been awarded 149,000 from the Mayor's High Streets Fund, and that's, I think, very positive. I know we're getting on, and Phil wants to chip in, no doubt. I just pick up on that one issue, which I know is very sensitive, and that is something that was also dealt with by the executive today, which is what is called the call for sites. And you're well aware that there's a local plan being discussed at the present time being developed. It's not developed yet, and it'll be a number of years before it's in place. The call for sites has taken place, which means that landowners of private and public ownership have put forward sites that would be considered to be part of the plan for development, whether that be residential or employment land or some other use. And so, in line with the desire for North Yorkshire Council to dispose of some of its assets in order to create capital receipts which can be reused, they have gone through a number of sites across North Yorkshire, 47 sites, and of those 5 are in Whitby. There's the Revo Road site, which I think was discussed anyway before previously, so that's no big surprise. The California Road that was also discussed in an earlier housing scheme. A site on Green Lane, which is at the moment a field just below Green Lane Centre. And the Whitby Extra Care site, as it's being called, which is the derelict land just below the hospital, which was cleared at the time of the hospital being redeveloped. And that I'm very keen to make sure is used for what it was originally intended for, which is extra care housing, rather than being put on the market. Yeah. Okay, well, you can say that. And then the final one is Estale School. And I know that's particularly controversial because at the very last meeting we had, there was all these wild rumours that it was going to be used for asylum seekers and goodness knows what. What we said was no, the decision hasn't been taken, but it has been included in the call for sites, so that will be considered. What means is that the council as a landlord has put it forward, put all of those forward, but then the planning process then has to take place in order to see it working. Another tiny bit of good news, and then I will hand over to Phil, and that is that North Yorkshire Council has just completed an inspection by the CQC, the Care Quality Commission, has come out with a good report for adult social care. In fact, it got 81 points, which at the present moment puts it in 3rd in the country, so adult social care is doing well. That's the good news. Not so good news is that Richard Webb, the head of that Director of Adult Social Care, has now found a job as Chief Executive of York City Council, so we're losing a really good officer, unfortunately. I think I've probably said enough, and I'll hand over to Phil, but good question.
Can I just ask before you start, the members want to ask questions of Councillor Swanning first, and then move on to Councillor Drummond? Yeah. That's the Councillor, then you have the first. Minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 18th of September 2025 and the extraordinary meeting held on the 7th of October 2025.
Right, so we have, I think I'm alright on this one. I think it is 9-1, it should be for an extraordinary meeting. Councillor Lane's got a hand up.
9-1 is the summons, not the public notice. Public notice is 10-2. Summons for extraordinary. So what we've got right is the summons.
Should be 9-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the notice of the meeting should be 10-2.
Yeah. Right, so we wouldn't normally put, oh, I see what you're getting at. Right, the minute, the extraordinary meeting has been called, so
Yes.
it should actually be on the agenda rather than the minutes.
No, it's what you have a notice of the meeting.
Yeah, so that should be tentative.
It should be taken to the end, not
Yeah.
first as summons.
Yeah,
So
so
we will
this
summon.
is not the summons,
No.
this, yeah,
This
so
is
the
the-
9-1 should be in the
Should
mention.
be a
That's fine, right, what we will do, we'll change that to 10-2. Right, easily done. And hopefully we won't have too many extra meetings on. That's just my wishes, thank you. And I think the next item was, as Mr Jefferson pointed out, we did already, we were already aware of this, that Councillor Wine was elected as chair of the Hammett Art Gallery Committee. Right, that's those two. And I will get you to initial those, but we need a proposal and second first and foremost.
I have one other query on the
Oh, there was the other one, Mr. To add town clerk into the Silco bit. It needs to have some sort of background of who it is that we're talking about.
Sorry?
The 9625,
Oh, that's not
19625.
what I'm going to react. No,
Yeah.
but yes, it would not.
For the new town clerk, are you happy with that? Yeah. But it's, right, okay then, we'll change it for, in respect of recruitment. That's not part of the motion, that's just in explanation, in respect for recruitment of a new town clerk. Proposed council will now set by council Lemon, the Silca is highly desirable and must be achieved within 12 months. Okay,
Happy with that amendment?
I've made that amendment. Yeah, anything else?
There was one other. Okay, this is being pedantic, I will admit.
Could you use the mic, please,
Sorry.
councillor?
Okay, I will admit this is being pedantic, perhaps, but councillors Harston and Dalrymple were elected in absentia. A previous mayor had set a precedent where people not present could not be voted.
Yeah.
Right. Now, there's nothing in the legislation that says that's the case, but those on local meetings suggest that if that is the case, the members who are elected acknowledge that and state that they are happy to take up that post. So, would it be easy just to, for the sake of transparency, ask two members, are they happy to accept the post they were voted into? And the minutes are suggested to them.
Just 1 second, right. What we're doing is approving the minutes. That wasn't said at the minutes. But are you happy verbally for those two councillors to say?
If councillors, yeah.
Yeah. Are you happy for those two councillors to say that in their absence they were elected to?
Yeah, they're happy with their election, yeah.
Yeah? Right, so we will note that in tonight's minutes.
So, given that those alterations, amendments have been made to the minutes, could I have a proposer and a seconder that we confirm as an accurate record now of the minutes of those two councillors? Councillor Coghlan, are you proposing? Yes. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Blackwell, all in favour? That's unanimous, I believe. Yeah, thank you, members. Just give you a minute for that. on to agenda item number 6, which is the Mayor's report. So I have been to a number of events throughout October. I've been to Dandy Chapel at the Dales and Singers, which was a lovely evening. I've been to the Royal Choir, which gave a resume of their Christmas programme. I had a wonderful, wonderful invitation, being a royalist, that I got to meet Princess Anne, but I have to say she was amazing with the volunteers at the Save the Children charity shop. She really did interact so well with them, so that was a wonderful day. What else have I done? Oh, I met with all the farmers who helped fight the fire on the moors. So I've had a really good amount of events that have been wonderful, and I've been very privileged to attend them. There's got some more things coming up which I'm looking forward to, and we will see how things develop on that. But yeah, it's been a good month for that. Thank you. Moving on. Are you caught up there? Yep. Right, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. Clerk's report.
Right. We've had a number of outstanding freedom of information requests. A lot of these have been accumulated over the past 2.5 to 3 months within the town clerk's inbox. Some can be dealt with, which are fairly straightforward. However, I will have to ask some councillors, because one is in respect of whether they've received any anti-Semitic kind of communication or anything like that. That's fairly easy to handle. But there are a couple that exceed the upper limit financially because of the amount of work that is being requested to put it together. I can handle these by requesting that the information sought is more specific. This prevents so-called fishing trips. Secondly, and this is the more difficult one, is that there are some requests which cannot be identified as a real person. Now, I think it's section 15 of the Freedom of Information Act. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Somebody will probably put me right on it. We can refuse to act if a verifiable name and address cannot be ascertained. There's a question nowadays about AI, right? How do we know that the request that we are receiving is from an actual person? That would fall under this description, use of pseudonyms. I would like the council's support on refusing such requests. Could result in challenges. But if the council wishes me to concentrate on current priorities in the short time I'll be going to be here, this might be a pragmatic approach. But obviously, I need your approval to do that, because it could result in challenges that we refuse an FOI request. But it's just to really cut down the amount that we've got.
I'll go to councillors for any comments. Councillor Rickles.
What would the challenges be? I mean, if someone challenges you, what
Well,
happens?
they will report us to the ICO,
And
the information commissioners.
yeah, and then what?
Then we respond in why we have refused it, and you take it.
So the worst case scenarios would be that they would say you have to do it.
Yeah, potentially. Or I don't know whether there are any fines or anything. I'll be a little bit out of touch, to be honest. You know, I think there are some fines.
So it's not going to be any. If we do it, you know, if we're going to do it, we'll have to do it anyway. So if it's going to cut down the chance of having to do it, then that's what it's taking. Does that make sense?
No.
If we don't have to do it, we won't have to do it.
Right. So in the cases where I can ask for when we've got requests for multiple sources of information and it's going to take a long time, bearing in mind, I think the limit's about 450 £50, something like that. It may have gone up.
18 hours, I think.
Yeah, it depends how much you pay, obviously. But obviously that's not necessarily what I get paid, it's what my time is charged out to the town council as, which is slightly higher. So there's that element. If I can look at it and say, right, that particular thing, it's going to take me more than X number of hours to find that information. Can you be more specific? Can you narrow it down to make it easy to find? And as for the ones where I can't identify as a real person, how do we go on that one?
I'm going to bring in Councillor Harston.
Yes.
I would have thought that you would, your defence would be, we asked them to identify who they were, they declined, we refused the request.
Yeah. So are we asking for name and address?
Yeah.
That can be verified.
Does it have to be somebody in, sorry,
Councillors I've got. You finish, Councillor Harston. Councillor Lennon.
I'm a nerd on lots of things. I haven't got around to the FOI, but I am of the opinion or belief that you do not have to provide your real name and address for an FOI. It's only when it gets to the first year tribunal.
Yeah, I think it's section 15 of the Freedom of Information Act. I mean, that's what I've looked at, and that to me reads as,
I'll check that.
yeah.
When I saw this on the agenda item, I went to whatdotheyknow.com,
Yeah,
and there are 1, 2, 3, 4.
but surely, what do they know, the whatdotheyknow.com, surely that person has to be registered as a real person.
I honestly, I am there registered as under my name.
Yeah.
what's a real person?
Yeah. Yeah, but my point is, as a town clerk, if I get an FOI request, how do I know it's not from an AI?
Of those, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 FOIs outstanding.
Yeah.
Is that all of them, or something? You can submit an FOI without having to go to that website. That makes life easier.
Yeah.
So, do we have any more than 4 outstanding at the moment?
Yes, I think so.
Sorry?
I think so. There's about half a dozen, I think.
6 outstanding. Okay.
Yeah.
Of these 4 that I've looked at, one of them is about political sponsorship of a particular councillor. 2 of them
Councillor
are...
Lennon, we can't hear you. Sorry, use the mic.
Yeah.
One of them is about political sponsorship for a councillor's election campaign. 1, 2, 3,
We
4.
wouldn't have that information.
It's on the register of interest.
But if the register of interest being published,
Yes.
then we don't have to supply that.
Well, okay, fine. But this is what I'm saying is.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't put
So that one, yeah, that
I
one's,
don't know. This,
yeah, that one's an easy one to deal with. That's one of the easier ones.
There's one of them wanting to know the details of who was the proper officer for August and September. One wanting to know who was the financial officer for August and
That's
September.
easy to answer.
Okay. Well, both of those are beyond the date now, apparently. And there was one emails from 3 WTC councillors, emails between 3 councillors from
Can I
1st of March
Can I
to
just
10th.
interrupt, because I believe that we're actually discussing whether we're going to allow freedom of information requests without having the identity. I didn't. Am I mistaken here that we're not discussing the we're not actually discussing the actual freedom of information request?
The clerk did say that some of them would be too expensive to do.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to find out, of those 4, are any of those too expensive to do?
Yeah. I don't think it was from a what do they know site.
Okay, that's fine.
The one I'm thinking of.
These are the ones I've probably not tried out.
Yeah, thank you. There's a few more that's outside of the what do they know.
Okay, then we'll say section 15 of the FOI, we'll say that with a real name. Okay, would we like to confirm that before we vote on it? Or we can vote on it.
I've got Councillor Wiley waiting to come in. If you'd like to come in, Councillor Wiley. Could you use the mic? I'm sorry, it's just making it easier for everyone to hear.
So has the electoral roll been checked to see whether these people are?
Well, they wouldn't necessarily have to be from Whitby. It could be from anywhere. Which is why, again, you come into this question, is it a real person, is it not a real person, because it could be a Russian bot somewhere. It's a dilemma, and it's a loophole that's never been filled.
I think it is very fair to say that we are open to any freedom of information request, and to ask for identification of the person requesting that is not asking too much. It should be a requirement. We've all said that we're very open to anything. We want to be transparent. Councillor Heron, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it does. Sorry, the Act does actually say that all requests must include the requester's name and contact details. Although that can be an email address, we can actually request a proper address. So it's the Freedom of Information Act from 2000.
Councillor Amanda Smith, you wanted to come in?
Can I just clarify, what actual information do we have? There's obviously a request for some information, so we don't have a name for the person that's requesting it, and we don't have an email address.
No, we do. Right,
An email
we do.
address.
What we're saying is, if you get an email from somebody, there is no way of telling that that is a actual person, right? Anybody can set up an email address in a false name. It could be done via AI. It's something that's become more prevalent, I think, over the years that I have been working. And it's one of those things I'm just, because of the time involved, that I could be involved in, when I should be spending on things that are more important to this town council. I think that is what I'm asking you to make a decision on. Right?
I think it should be made out as well. So that's better emails, what emails basically.
Yeah,
Asking questions from councillors.
Yeah.
So,
Councillor, it is just one question, so unless this is a new point.
So you get an FOI from Joe Gogs, and his name is Joe Gogs at yahoo.com. What are you going to have to say to them? Who are you? Say I'm Joe Gogs.
Yeah, right. Right, what we have to ask them is, could they supply a name and address so we can give them the information in writing?
That's not asking too
That's not asking too
Can't do
much.
that. That's not a legal requirement.
Yes. That's it, why not? Where does it say?
Gone further outside the law here.
I'm going to stop this because it's becoming a conversation between you and the clerk, and I'm stopping everybody else doing it, so it's only fair to treat everyone in the same vein. Do you want to just add on to that, just to summarise up?
Well, basically, I'm asking your support for dealing with the FRIs in the way that I see fit, asking for a name and address so that we can supply the information in writing to a specific name and address. And in respect of the ones where they go over the upper limit of time, refusing them and asking for more specific, than to specify in more detail what they want. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Magistrate, is it something?
Just a very quick question. When you say address, would we allow post boxes, or would we didn't have to have an actual address?
Right, I think if it's a PO box, we're just going to go with it.
Anyway.
You know, we could go on forever today. I think the other way, I don't know. No.
You don't, right?
Yeah. So if we get a PO box, we stand anyway, so. Well, I'm just asking for your support.
Can I have a show of hands?
Just clarify, I'm assuming a register is kept with all FOI
Yes.
successful and so action or decline.
Right, I have There used to be a spreadsheet with all on,
Yeah.
dates received, blah, blah, blah. I don't know whether that's still there, but that is how I will do it. And I will give the reasons for what I've done.
Okay.
So that's Councillor Dalrymple, Councillor Brown, I think it was, who seconded that.
Yeah. All in favour of supporting the clerk's request? Against? And abstentions? Thank you, members. Moving on to item B.
B, which is, oh, this one's a good one. This one. When I find the right bits of paper, because I've scribbled all over it. Right, down forward. We had a meeting, or I had a meeting with the Mayor and Mr Trumper and our facilities manager. Had a meeting on the 21st of October. I think Danfo were coming with the assumption that we were going to say, oh yes, do this, we'll, the town council will do this, do that, whatever. But I presented them with the following. July 2017, the original contract was signed with Danfo, which gave the town council 100% of the income once all disbursements and capital costs had been removed. The contract was for a period of 5 years. However, following increased capital costs of refurbishing marketplace toilets, this was extended to 10 years for all the capital expenditures to be recouped. I left then in 2020. That was the position when I left. A meeting was held with Danfo on the 8th of the 11th, 21, and a briefing document was submitted by the company. And although negotiation on costs was suggested at this time, I cannot see any changes of the split of income. That wasn't proposed in the document that came from Danfo. A report was prepared by the then Town Clerk and RFO for an F&GP meeting on the 16th of the 11th, 21. The report states that due to an annual £40,000 loss of revenue for the company, they were proposing a reduction in the agreed frequency of cleaning due to an increase in demand. The original contract had 2 clauses which allowed for some revision. A recommendation was made by the Town Clerk for a 70-30 split in favour of Danfo, and that the Clerk is delegated authority to agree and finalise revisions. At the F&GP meeting held on the 16th of November, the Town Clerk's report was received, and it was resolved that the Clerk, in consultation with 3 other councillors, be given delegated authority to meet with Danfo and negotiate variations to the contract. There is no further mention of either F&GP or Full Council of an agreement being discussed. This may be the result of further COVID restrictions, which was brought in on the 14th of December 21. It was resolved at an F&GP meeting that whilst these restrictions are in place, the proper officer is empowered to take any and all decisions in consultation with the members of the relevant committees or full councils, and physical meetings were suspended at this point. Subsequently, I understand that a 50-50 split was discussed with Danfo, but I can find no evidence of this proposal ever being brought back to committee or full council. Additionally, I cannot find any record of a revision of contract being signed by both parties. The next annual account that was issued had applied a 50-50 split. I asked Danfo could they shed any light or produce a copy of a signed contract agreeing to the revisions. I put to Danfo at this meeting that as far as I was concerned, the original contract from 2017 was still in force and that the 50-50 split was never agreed by council, and unless they could show me differently, we are still owed the other 50% of the income for the years concerned. I've not heard anything back yet. But I'm assuming that they're rapidly going through all the stuff, but the stuff that I've gone through, I cannot find anywhere where that was ever brought back to council.
I think it's also worth mentioning, Pam, that Danfo also said that they couldn't find any records of any variation to the contract.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's an issue there.
Yeah.
Councillor Amanda Smith, and I've got Councillor Lynn.
I'm in 100% agreement with most of what's been said. However, I can't find it just right at this minute, but I did find in our minutes there was a resolution passed for the 50-50 split. However, I do agree that Dan Flo, in the meetings that have been held previously, and certainly the meeting that I was in attendance with them, agreed that there was no big variation to the contracts, in which case 50-50 split doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Although we have a resolution within our records that says it was agreed.
Yeah.
For 1 year and 1 year
Yeah.
only.
I would say, I think I've heard, I think Councillor Reels mentioned, I can't remember which was that mentioned it now, maybe Councillor Smith, maybe Councillor Reels, that there was some mention of a 50-50 split for 1 year. However, it's continued to be applied. But to me, there was, unless the council, they may have said, yeah, okay, we'll agree to a 50-50 split for a year, but if no document was drawn up and no document signed by both parties, then that doesn't exist. That's the position we're in at the moment. We are waiting to see what happens, but I wanted to make the council aware of where we are.
Councillor Lynn,
Well, this will be. This may be contentious, but there are 2 members of the council here who were on that working group that discussed that 50-50 split, and they were both members of the FMPG. They're both here, so I would suggest they could possibly give us the answers we're looking for.
I think it's clear it wasn't the contract.
Yeah, I think I'm not saying they weren't party to the discussions, they were. I don't think they were ever party to it actually being agreed. I think the clerk had done it under delegated powers.
I think the point here, Councillor Lynn, that we are waiting for information to come back. We have no evidence as it stands that the contract was varied in any way and signed accordingly. So until we get that back, we'll just see, I presume we'll be pressing down for
50% from 20.
Well, absolutely that, but for a response in the next few weeks, because they don't need that much time.
We have set up the meeting.
Yeah.
A monthly catch-up.
Yeah.
Which is going to happen.
But obviously, I need to inform councillors what's happening.
Yeah.
You need to be aware.
We're trying to keep everything coming forward. Councillor Abbott, you had your hand raised.
Yeah. What I want to know, who was present from the council, or the council there, when these contracts were signed? Were they signed up by the
Well, originally,
yeah.
the original contract was signed by full council, and it was signed by me and whoever was the mayor at the time. But we're talking about 2017 now.
That's it. But then we'll move on.
What we're saying is in 2021, that same process wasn't gone through.
Well, didn't do it.
So therefore, it doesn't exist unless they can provide me with a signed contract, which I can't find here. So,
Well, sorry.
we revert back to 2017 contract.
So what puzzling me, why wasn't the council involved at their meeting saying, what about council, what about, why haven't we done this, why, is it something that...
I can't
I
tell you.
don't
I can't tell you. All I'm asking for tonight is just you to know what I've told you. That's it. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Councillor, is it a new point? Because I am
It
aware
is,
of all
yes.
the next points.
Before we poke this particular hornet's nest, the annual repayments for their initial work they did was £7,500. According to the contract, this index links, they have never claimed that. So if you start asking them for money, they might remember that they haven't done it.
Well, I think there is
Also, the contract only requires them to pay up to £500 for any vandalism, which we then pay them back. The council is responsible for all maintenance. They've been carrying out maintenance, several £1,000 of maintenance. They might remember that they have built.
I think there will be some negotiation.
I think we might all be worse off.
I don't know about that.
I mean, the thing is,
Time
sorry, I'm interrupting now, I do apologise, Pam, but I was just going to say, I think the thing is, we have a contract, and that contract is for both parties. So we've got to deal with this and make sure that everything is correct on both parties. We will be bringing an update back when we get some more information back. As soon as we get it, keep everybody updated.
Yeah.
Councillor Riddles.
Is this, I'll go back to my book because I started looking at this, that there was an 18,000 deficit that on Pier Road on the credit scales for 1 year. They took something like £13 for 1 year.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me and my credit card wasn't working, it would be working the next day. And it certainly wouldn't be over the year.
Right, all I can say is, and I had a discussion about this earlier in the day, I can find some where we've been getting the monthly reports through, right? And when I was in the post, and Councillor Smith will bear me out on this, I used to record each toilet block, the figures that they sent me were recorded into a spreadsheet. And at the end of the year, you then knew roughly what you were going to be getting. If that's done every month, as it should have been, the first time that there was no cashless income from Pier Road, it should have been picked up. It wasn't.
It was. It was totally picked up, but there was never any answer. So let's be clear about that. It was picked up. It was £10 something on the card machine.
Councillor Mulhern, can you pass Councillor Wiley light, because it's difficult to get to the ear.
What are you saying it wasn't picked up by that?
It wasn't picked up by the clerk.
It was.
But it was only picked up at the end of the year.
It wasn't. It was picked up as it went along.
But why wasn't it challenged?
It was challenged. It was challenged.
Well, why wasn't it put right?
I don't know.
Well, that's what we don't know.
But it was picked up. Because it was £10, something like £10.50 or £13 something.
It was £13 something over the year.
But the cash, the card machine the previous year was 15,000.
Yeah.
But the cash that year, when it was £13.50, there was no there were no £15,000 extra cash. So this was the problem, and this was pointed out repeatedly.
Well then, in that case, if that machine should have been repaired, then if it was repeatedly reported, then Danfo were in breach of contract. So why wasn't that process taken? But look, I've given you the report. We are where we are, right? But actually, I jumped one. Yeah, not this stage. I did miss out on the progress of recruitment of the town clerk. I have reported this to the Human Resources Committee earlier. We've had 14 requests for the recruitment pack, and we have had 2 applications submitted. The closing date is the 17th of November. We're anticipating that the interviews will be held the week commencing the 1st of December. We are slightly limited on budget in terms of what we could afford to spend, because you had advertising for employment earlier in the year. So we went with YLCA, and we went with the Society of Local Council Clerks, and it's also appeared on, this is the coast or something like that, Yorkshire, with big Gazette and things like that. So they are coming in a steady flow. I think there wasn't anything else I had to say on the recruitment of the clerk, just that we've got 14 and we've got 2. Yeah. That's where we are with that. And then the last item is the approach from RAF Fylingdales and REMI have both approached us in respect of having freedom of whipping. Now, some councillors that have been here a while will recall we did this in 2011 for the Yorkshire Regiment, at which time we had a parade and everything else. Is this something you wish me to pursue? Yes.
Are you asking everybody?
Hang on, councillors, I've got Councillor Lehman that put her hand up first.
Yeah, so this is going back to the recruitment of the town.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're going back to the recruitment of the town clerk. Will we be using an external HR company to do the interviewing, or we can do it in-house?
Right, that was, right, we have talked about, at the HR meeting, we did talk about the fact that we used to have employment advisors who we would have been able to use. We can't make that decision at the HR committee, we've got to bring it back to full council about the funding to go, because it was the budget was taken away. It all depends what happens in terms of, we know we've got the budget to look at for next year, but have we got anything in the budget for this year that we could use to reinstate that contract? Then we could use that to do it. There's still a few steps to go. We haven't got there yet, but we're looking at it.
Any other questions, councillors, on that? No, so we'll
Yeah, so back to the freedom of whipping for REMI and RAF Fylingdales. It's just you want us to take it to the next stage.
Councillor
I
Miller?
thought we could go forward with that.
Yeah. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Coghlan, can I take a vote that we move forward with the freedom of the town? All in favour?
Yeah. Against?
Against?
One against.
Abstentions?
Four.
Yes. That's carried, members will be looking to carry that forward and do further investigations of that.
I mean, again, this will come up when we start discussing budgets, because obviously there'll be money have to be set aside for it, etc., etc. Yeah, but we need funding for it first. Yeah.
Okay, members, moving on to agenda. Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Sorry, just to go back to the plan club and things.
Yeah.
We brought to us at a council meeting that we needed emergency electrical survey doing on it. And there is, I know there's outstanding maintenance, which I'll take offline for the team.
Yeah.
Have that electrical survey.
Right, we've got the price for the electrical survey. Right, it's on my desk as we speak. So again, that will be looked at by either the full council finance meeting next week or whatever, depending on what happens at the trip meeting. So
okay, it was urgent 3, 4, 5 months ago, that was all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, at least we've got a quote.
Right, moving on to agenda item number 8, review of minute number 08/29, trial of changes to committee system. To review the decision that Finance Policy and General Purposes Committee, Harbour Committee and Town Development and Improvement Committee be as one committee held monthly on the second Tuesday of the month, all councillors to be members, and it's come to that point in time when we review that decision. 6 months have passed. So, any comments, members? We'll fire off with Councillor Steve Smith.
I think this hasn't had a fair trial because we haven't had the information coming to the full committee. Now, if we hadn't come to the full committee, we could have made the right decisions. It's been very ill-informed on the financial matters or anything else. I would like to propose or suggest that we go forward with another 6 months. I'll propose.
So we've got a proposal on the floor. Councillor Lehman.
No, it's just for a second, Councillor Smith's proposal.
Any other comments before we move to a vote on this?
Well, does anybody else got anything to say?
That's for them.
Yeah, sorry.
I think that's
Sorry.
Mulheron.
I think it actually hasn't worked. I do realise that we've been without a clerk for some time ago. However, I don't think it has worked, and I think it would be much better to have smaller committees who are more specialised, actually looking at things in detail. I do realise it's been good, everyone being involved with finance, but we tend to just go round and round in circles when we're discussing it. So I would rather have the small specialist committees, such as finance, such as I would put town development and harbour together, because I think they're linked. But I would rather go with the small committees. Thank you.
Councillor Lehman.
Yeah, is that a proposal, Councillor Mulheron?
Yes.
I'm happy to second that.
Right. So we'll do proposals.
Before we move on, I'm going to give members opportunity to speak. Councillor Lehman.
Councillor Mulheron said we had the specialists. Have we? I would question that, especially with regard to finance. You see, you say about finances. And also, if this is reverted, this is go back to the old system with, say, 7 members for finance, or we're going to make a completely different system. But the problem we had, and I'll say it clearly, it was blatant cronyism on the previous system. There was a hardcore of councillors that got all the jobs, kept them, and excluded anybody else. No one else would ever look at it. That's why this motion was put forward. And you now think it goes back to that.
Well, it's going to go to a vote. Councillor.
Sure.
Councillor McCann. I never heard Councillor Mulheron say specialist at all. She says specialised.
Specialised committees. Okay.
Well, we're being pedantic. So, councillors, please, not across the floor. Councillor McCann, you've got the floor at the moment.
I agree with Councillor Mulheron. I think smaller committees, you can get things done on a much bigger scale.
Councillor Wynd.
I withdraw my reservation, thank you.
Can you... Can't hear, sorry, Councillor Wynd, you can
No, I withdraw. Withdraw.
You withdraw.
Is that it?
Councillor Riddles, then I've got Councillor Anderson.
We have had problems in the past with people wanting to join committees and not being able to. And I just wonder, we have a situation where we have 7, but actually does it really matter if we have 7 or 10? If we could have a system where you put your name down, if you want to be in a committee, you want to do the work, then do we have to have...
I believe I'd be correct in stating it's in our standing orders.
Well, that's right. Yeah, but at the moment we're sort of looking at standing orders anyway. Can I just point out the reason why it's 7 and not 10? Right. If you had 10 people on Finance and General Purposes Committee, for instance, right, they could then outvote council, full council. Because they put a recommendation forward at FGP, right? They all support it, they read it to full council, 10 of them vote for it, there's only 19 on you, so they can automatically outvote you. And that's the reason why it was always a lesser number. Whether 7 is the right number, whether 9 would be okay, or whether you think about doing it in a different way, that you have an F&GP committee, but you also, and if you reinstate an F&GP and you reinstate a town development improvement, do you then create another group of the people who aren't on those that form an overview scrutiny committee? That way, there's more oversight. It's another way of looking at things. I'm just throwing things out there at the moment because I think that could be a way forward. I do think that it would be helpful if councillors, I could hang on about this for years, that councillors undertake training, right? there's lots of training out there that we as council can tap into, right? And I think in terms of HR, even if we have employment advisors, I think you should have councillors being trained. And I think also the same, possibly, not trained in F&GP, but at least to have a certain financial acumen. I would say the same about planning, that I mean, the councillors that know me know that I always know planning like the plague, because most people couldn't even read a set of plans, and it's like, So, I could see, it's true. But you can see where I'm coming from on this. You know, that there are other ways of approaching this system to try and be more inclusive.
Councillor Amanda Smith, then I've got Councillor Harrison.
I 100% agree with what Councillor said, and the opening and scrutiny committee sounds like a brilliant idea. That wasn't what I initially stood up to ask, though. What I initially stood up to ask was, were we intending to have these committee meetings once a month? Because I do think it's imperative, because the amendment that we ended up with was to a thing that I put forward initially, the proposal that I put forward that we amended to what it became. That was put forward because we were told we couldn't have any more committee meetings, we were stretching our staff too far, and therefore, and we were only having committee meetings once every other month, so FP and GP was only meeting once every 2 months, and council was only meeting once every 2 months. And I believe it's absolutely imperative that finance is done on a monthly basis. I just don't think it can stretch over 2 months. So if we are going back to that system, are we talking about going back to monthly meetings?
I would suggest, right, the good old days. I'm sorry, I know I keep harping on about it, but it worked. We used to have one full council meeting every month. Right? We used to have F&GP every month. I think we used to have town improvement every month, but I can quite see the idea of putting harbours in with town improvement. To me, that does make sense. So you'd be meeting 3 times a month instead of twice, but there could potentially be shorter meetings, and you can focus, and then you could have a meeting and your overroom scrutiny committee could look at those decisions before they come back to full council, and then refer back. If there's anything that's not quite happy, if anything you're not quite happy with, then it's referred back to the original committee. I mean, when we come to doing budgets, right, you've got to look at the, you know, it does take a long time to go through it all. And I think trying to do it in a full council meeting, I think you'd be better, even if you stick with what we've got now, you have some separate meetings just to discuss the budget. But the floor is yours.
Councillor Harrison, you wanted to come in.
Amanda and Pam have said exactly what I was going to say. It worked much better when we had monthly meetings.
Yeah. I think there's been some suggestions come forward, and I know we've got 2 proposals on the floor, but would it be better if we ask the clerk to put those ideas in paper for members to consider? Because I think there's a whole review of our committee structure that's been suggested, which it might benefit us to just, instead of making an ad hoc decision on this one meeting, do we need to look a little bit broader?
Yeah, I think just that whole point of order under 10A3, can we defer it so it is sorted out? And it comes to council with firm option.
Yeah.
And then we're happy with that?
Yeah.
Could we defer it till next week's meeting?
I think that would be a bit short time,
Yeah.
asking the clerk
I
to
mean,
bring
I
that
am-
to us. She's looking at the budget. And
I
many
am
other
conscious
issues.
that we've got this budget to start, at least to get the first steps in, which would probably be next Tuesday. Yeah, we've got Christmas festival, so I think, yeah, if we can defer it to a meeting later in the month and do it that way.
And I was happy with that because, you know, we need a result that we're all happy with and that works for this council, and a little bit rushing in may not serve us in the right way. Council wide.
And then we can look for people with attitude, can't we? Because if we can't
Again, I'm sorry, can you pass the mic? Sorry, Council Wide, we just can't hear it.
It sounds like a really good idea to me, because we can look for people with aptitude. Because I can recall at the time, the councillor sent me an email to the finance committee saying no, not one of us had any aptitude. And not only that, it was shameful. It wasn't shameful not to have the aptitude, it was shameless that none of us would admit it. So perhaps if we look for another finance committee, we can look at the aptitude of the people who are going on. I think, is there a test for aptitude? Because when you join the town council, you have to have any aptitude. You have to have any skills. Well, you can come from any walk of life when you join the town council.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should be compulsory. I'm always supporting compulsory training quite frankly. I tried to bring that in at Scarborough because I think planning and that should be mandatory. It should be though.
It should be.
Well, sorry, planning is, but
Planning is mandatory.
Yeah.
you know, if you're sitting on it, there's training available, and I think that we need a programme of training
So
that
we
we all
will
take.
look for people with aptitude as opposed to being insulted or being accused of having no
We've not made any
aptitude.
decisions yet. Well, all we're going to do is we're going to defer the decision about changing the committee system at least until later in this month. Okay?
Okay, then.
So for next week, we'll be going second full council meeting with the F&G PO. And hopefully I might have something for you for the budget, but I'm not promising. Right, so I think Councillor Layman to propose deferring.
Yeah. Do I have a second then for that?
Yeah, Councillor Smith.
All in favour?
Of deferring. Yeah.
Was that unanimous?
Yeah, I think Councillor Welder got one. Yeah, unanimous.
Thank you.
On this procedure, make a motion that we move item 9 to the end of the meeting, and we've got 3 shorter possibly resolutions.
Yeah, well, I think Councillor Turner, the Mayor, was going to make a proposal about, is it 10 and 11A?
Yes.
Right, sorry, Madam Mayor, I was just looking at the time. Yeah, sorry.
With the motion proposed by Councillor Blackwell and seconded by Councillor Moore, this was the active travel motion. I'm just trying to catch up on my round here. But at the moment, North Yorkshire Council are being very active in their active travel work.
Yeah.
And I do believe it really comes under their remit rather than looking for us to take on something else. There was the one where we're looking at the budget to increase the precept to cover Councillor Layman's motion. And I would ask you if you would just defer that, because we are coming up to look at our budget very soon, where we will have to consider all expenditure for this council. And if we put this through, we may end up in a position where we're having to cut some other financial allowances to things that we need to look at, particularly when it's in relation to something that North Yorkshire Council are already dealing with. So I'm looking at you, Councillor Raymond. Councillor O'Hara, do you want?
Well, Councillor Blackwell is the second of
Yeah.
In relation to the active travel one, the second one, the Mayor of Yorkshire announced on the 24th of October that he was putting £2.4 million to one side for active travel.
Yeah.
And that we could start bidding for it in January. I would propose that we actually get together a bid for active travel specific to Whitby.
It makes much more sense when there is funding out
As
there
there
than
is
us asking our residents for yet more.
I absolutely agree with you, because if you think we are giving as residents money to the precept from there anyway,
Yeah.
why are we paying twice for this? So I would rather it came from the mayor's budget rather than ours.
Are you happy with that to withdraw that? Very happy. Yeah?
Yeah, so we're withdrawing motion 11A
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, 11A. Right, yeah, so that's withdrawn temporarily. We'll keep it, do that.
Yeah.
What
The 10.
Yeah.
We have the motion that was deferred from our last meeting, which was a motion from Councillor Blackwell, seconded by Councillor White. And again, this was for the active travel working group, but
Cars safety. Safety of the cars.
yeah, there is already a group being put together with that where we could feed into that group without necessarily taking on something that's outside our boundaries, our parish boundary, because obviously we're concerned with what happens within the town and the parish of Rusland. But the cars then goes on and it's overlapping, and I'm very conscious we have a lot of work to tackle. We really don't want to be looking at something that's outside our parish, but that doesn't mean to say that we can't feed into that and give support, because the assistant clerk and myself, we did go to a meeting.
Yeah, but we do need to have a representative sit on it.
I was represented off North Council.
Yeah. So we just look to have one representative coming from the town council to feed into that. And it's up to members who that is, but I know Councillor Blackwell has been bringing that forward, but I'm not favouring anything, but it's up to members to...
That's all, I would second